tonight, we drift into a quieter world, where Pif-Paf-Poltrie seeks the hand of fair Katrinelje, where an enchanted fish and a snow-white lamb find mercy, and where 3 royal brothers strive to prove who is the laziest of all. So close your eyes and let the stories carry you far away into the quiet of the night. 1 eye, 2 eyes, and 3 eyes. There was once a woman who had 3 daughters, the eldest of whom was called 1 eye, because she had only 1 eye in the middle of her forehead, and the second 2 eyes, because she had 2 eyes, like other folks, and the youngest 3 eyes, because she had 3 eyes. And her 3rd eye was also in the center of her forehead. However, as 2 eyes saw just as other human beings did her sisters, and her mother could not endure her, they said to her, "Thou with thy 2 eyes art no better than the common people. Thou dost not belong to us." They pushed her about and threw old clothes to her and gave her nothing to eat but what they left, and did everything that they could to make her unhappy. It came to pass that 2 eyes had to go out into the fields and tend the goat, but she was still quite hungry because her sisters had given her so little to eat. So she sat down on a ridge and began to weep, and so bitterly that 2 streams ran down from her eyes. And once, when she looked up in her grief, a woman was standing beside her, who said, "Why art thou weeping, little 2 eyes?" 2 eyes answered, "Have I not reason to weep when I have 2 eyes? Like other people, and my sisters and mother hate me for it and push me from one corner to another, throw old clothes at me and give me nothing to eat but the scraps they leave. Today they have given me so little that I am still quite hungry." Then the wise woman said, "Wipe away thy tears, 2 eyes, and I will tell thee something to stop thee ever suffering from hunger again. Just say to thy goat, 'Bleat, my little goat, bleat. Cover the table with something to eat.' And then a clean, well-spread little table will stand before thee with the most delicious food upon it, of which thou mayest eat as much as thou art inclined for. And when thou hast had enough, and hast no more need of the little table, just say, 'Bleat, bleat, my little goat, I pray,' and take the table quite away, and then it will vanish again from thy sight." Hereupon the wise woman departed. But 2 eyes thought, "I must instantly make a trial, and see if what she said is true, for I am far too hungry." And she said, "Bleat, my little goat, bleat. Cover the table with something to eat." And scarcely had she spoken the words, than a little table covered with a white cloth was standing there, and on it was a plate with a knife and fork and a silver spoon. And the most delicious food was there also, warm and smoking, as if it had just come out of the kitchen. Then Two Eyes said the shortest prayer she knew. "Lord God, be with us always, amen," and helped herself to some food and enjoyed it. And when she was satisfied, she said, as the wise woman had taught her, "Bleat, bleat, my little goat, I pray, and take the table quite away." And immediately the little table and everything on it was gone again. That is a delightful way of keeping house, thought Two Eyes, and was quite glad and happy. In the evening, when she went home with her goat, she found a small earthenware dish with some food, which her sisters had set ready for her, but she did not touch it. Next day, she again went out with her goat and left the few bits of broken bread which had been handed to her lying untouched. The first and second time that she did this, her sisters did not remark it at all. But as it had, every time they did observe it and said, "There is something wrong about Two Eyes. She always leaves her food untasted, and she used to eat up everything that was given her. She must have discovered other ways of getting food." In order that they might learn the truth, they resolved to send One Eye with Two Eyes when she went to drive her goat to the pasture to observe what Two Eyes did when she was there, and whether anyone brought her anything to eat and drink. So when Two Eyes set out the next time, One Eye went to her and said, "I will go with you to the pasture and see that the goat is well taken care of and driven where there is food." But Two Eyes knew what was in One Eye's mind, and drove the goat into high grass and said, "Come, One Eye, we will sit down, and I will sing something to you." One Eye sat down and was tired with the unaccustomed walk and the heat of the sun. And Two Eyes sang constantly, "One Eye wakest thou, One Eye sleepest thou," until One Eye shut her, One Eye, and fell asleep. And as soon as Two Eyes saw that One Eye was fast asleep and could discover nothing, she said, "Bleat, my little goat, bleat. Cover the table with something to eat," and seated herself at her table and ate and drank until she was satisfied. And then she again cried, "Bleat, bleat, my little goat, I pray, and take the table quite away." And in an instant all was gone. Two Eyes now awakened One Eye and said, "One Eye, you want to take care of the goat and go to sleep while you are doing it. And in the meantime, the goat might run all over the world. Come, let us go home again." So they went home, and again Two Eyes let her little dish stand untouched, and One Eye could not tell her mother why she wouldn't eat it, and to excuse herself said, "I fell asleep when I was out." Next day, the mother said to Three Eyes, "This time thou shalt go and observe if Two Eyes eats anything when she is out, and if anyone fetches her food and drink, for she must eat and drink in secret. So Three Eyes went to Two Eyes and said, I will go with you and see if the goat is taken proper care of and driven where there is food. But Two Eyes knew what was in Three Eyes' mind, and drove the goat into high grass, and said, We will sit down, and I will sing something to you. Three Eyes. Three Eyes sat down, and was tired with the walk, and with the heat of the sun. And Two Eyes began the same song as before, and sang, Three Eyes, are you waking? But then instead of singing, Three Eyes, are you sleeping? As she ought to have done, she thoughtlessly sang, Two Eyes, are you sleeping? And sang all the time, Three Eyes, are you waking? Two Eyes, are you sleeping? Then two of the eyes, which Three Eyes had shut, and fell asleep. But the third, as it had not been named in the song, did not sleep. It is true that Three Eyes shut it, but only in her cunning, to pretend it was asleep too. But it blinked, and could see everything very well. And when Two Eyes thought that Three Eyes was fast asleep, she used her little charm. Bleat, my little goat, bleat. Cover the table with something to eat. And ate and drank as much as her heart desired, and then ordered the table to go away again. Bleat, bleat, my little goat, I pray, and take the table quite away. And Three Eyes had seen everything. Then Two Eyes came to her, waked her, and said, Have you been asleep? Three Eyes, you are a good caretaker. Come, we will go home. And when they got home, Two Eyes again did not eat. And Three Eyes said to the mother, Now I know why that high-minded thing there does not eat. When she is out, she says to the goat, Bleat, my little goat, bleat, cover the table with something to eat. And then a little table appears before her, covered with the best of food, much better than any we have here. And when she has eaten all she wants, she says, Bleat, bleat, my little goat, I pray, and take the table quite away, and all disappears. I watched everything closely. She put two of my eyes to sleep by using a certain form of words, but luckily the one in my forehead kept awake. Then the envious mother cried, Dost thou want to fare better than we do? The desire shall pass away. And she fetched a butcher's knife and thrust it into the heart of the goat, which fell down dead. When Two Eyes saw that she went out full of trouble, seated herself on the ridge of grass at the edge of the field, and wept bitter tears. Suddenly, the wise woman once more stood by her side and said, Two Eyes, why art thou weeping? Have I not reason to weep? she answered. "The goat which covered the table for me every day when I spoke, your charm has been killed by my mother, and now I shall again have to bear hunger and want." The wise woman said, "Two Eyes, I will give thee a piece of good advice. Ask thy sisters to give thee the entrails of the slaughtered goat and bury them in the ground in front of the house, and thy fortune will be made." Then she vanished, and Two Eyes went home and said to her sisters, "Dear sisters, do give me some part of my goat. I don't wish for what is good, but give me the entrails." Then they laughed and said, "If that's all you want, you can have it." So Two Eyes took the entrails and buried them quietly in the evening in front of the house door, as the wise woman had counseled her to do. Next morning, when they all awoke and went to the house door, there stood a strangely magnificent tree with leaves of silver and fruit of gold hanging among them, so that in all the wide world there was nothing more beautiful or precious. They did not know how the tree could have come there during the night, but Two Eyes saw that it had grown up out of the entrails of the goat, for it was standing on the exact spot where she had buried them. Then the mother said to One Eye, "Climb up, my child, and gather some of the fruit of the tree for us." One Eye climbed up, but when she was about to get hold of one of the golden apples, the branch escaped from her hands, and that happened each time, so that she could not pluck a single apple, let her do what she might. Then said the mother, "Three Eyes, do you climb up? You, with your 3 eyes, can look about you better than One Eye." One Eye slipped down, and 3 Eyes climbed up. 3 Eyes was not more skillful, and might search as she liked, but the golden apples always escaped her. At length, the mother grew impatient and climbed up herself, but could get hold of the fruit no better than One Eye and 3 Eyes, for she always clutched empty air. Then said 2 Eyes, "I will just go up, perhaps I may succeed better." The sisters cried, "You indeed, with your 2 eyes, what can you do?" But 2 Eyes climbed up, and the golden apples did get out of her way, but came into her hand of their own accord, so that she could pluck them one after the other, and brought a whole apronful down with her. The mother took them away from her, and instead of treating poor 2 Eyes any better for this, she and 1 Eye and 3 Eyes were only envious because 2 Eyes alone had been able to get the fruit, and they treated her still more cruelly. It so befell that once when they were all standing together by the tree, a young knight came up. "Quick, 2 Eyes," cried the 2 sisters, "creep under this, and don't disgrace us." And with all speed, they turned an empty barrel, which was standing close by the tree, overpour Two Eyes, and they pushed the golden apples which she had been gathering under it too. When the night came nearer, he was a handsome lord, who stopped and admired the magnificent gold and silver tree, and said to the two sisters, "To whom does this fine tree belong? Anyone who would bestow one branch of it on me might in return for it ask whatsoever he desired." Cho. Then One Eye and Three Eyes replied that the tree belonged to them, and that they would give him a branch. They both took great trouble, but they were not able to do it for the branches, and fruit both moved away from them every time. Then said the Knight, "It is very strange that the tree should belong to you, and that you should still not be able to break a piece off." They again asserted that the tree was their property. Whilst they were saying so, Two Eyes rolled out a couple of golden apples from under the barrel to the feet of the Knight, for she was vexed with One Eye and Three Eyes for not speaking the truth. When the Knight saw the apples, he was astonished and asked where they came from. One Eye and Three Eyes answered that they had another sister who was not allowed to show herself, for she had only two eyes, like any common person. The Knight, however, desired to see her, and cried, "Two Eyes, come forth." Then Two Eyes, quite comforted, came from beneath the barrel, and the Knight was surprised at her great beauty, and said, "Thou Two Eyes canst certainly break off a branch from the tree for me." "Yes," replied Two Eyes, "that I certainly shall be able to do, for the tree belongs to me." Chum. And she climbed up, and with the greatest ease broke off a branch with beautiful silver leaves and golden fruit, and gave it to the Knight. Then said the Knight, "Two Eyes, what shall I give thee for it?" "Alas," answered Two Eyes, "I suffer from hunger and thirst, grief and want from early morning till late night. If you would take me with you and deliver me from these things, I should be happy." So the Knight lifted Two Eyes on to his horse, and took her home with him to his father's castle. And there he gave her beautiful clothes, and meat, and drink, to her heart's content. And as he loved her so much, he married her, and the wedding was solemnized with great rejoicing. When Two Eyes was thus carried away by the handsome Knight, her two sisters grudged her good fortune in downright earnest. The wonderful tree, however, still remains with us, thought they, and even if we can gather no fruit from it, still every one will stand still and look at it, and come to us and admire it. Who knows what good things may be in store for us? But next morning, the tree had vanished, and all their hopes were at an end. And when Two Eyes looked out of the window of her own little room, to her great delight. It was standing in front of it, and so it had followed her. Two Eyes lived a long time in happiness. Once, two poor women came to her in her castle and begged for alms. She looked in their faces and recognized her sisters, One Eye and Three Eyes, who had fallen into such poverty that they had to wander about and beg their bread from door to door. Two Eyes, however, made them welcome and was kind to them and took care of them, so that they both, with all their hearts, repented the evil that they had done their sister in their youth. Ferdinand the Faithful. Once on a time lived a man and a woman, who so long as they were rich had no children. But when they were poor, they had a little boy. They could, however, find no godfather for him. So the man said he would just go to another place to see if he could get one there. As he went, a poor man met him, who asked him where he was going. He said he was going to see if he could get a godfather, that he was poor, so no one would stand as godfather for him. "Oh," said the poor man, "you are poor and I am poor. I will be godfather for you, but I am so ill off, I can give the child nothing. Go home and tell the nurse that she is to come to the church with the child." When they all got to the church together, the beggar was already there, and he gave the child the name of Ferdinand the Faithful. When he was going out of the church, the beggar said, "Now go home, I can give you nothing, and you likewise ought to give me nothing." But he gave a key to the nurse, and told her when she got home, she was to give it to the father, who was to take care of it until the child was 14 years old. And then he was to go on the heath, where there was a castle, which the key would fit, and that all which was therein should belong to him. Now, when the child was 7 years old and had grown very big, he once went to play with some other boys, and each of them boasted that he had got more from his godfather than the other. But the child could say nothing, and was vexed, and went home, and said to his father, "Did I get nothing at all, then, from my godfather?" "Oh, yes," said the father. "Thou hadst a key. If there is a castle standing on the heath, just go to it and open it." Then the boy went thither, but no castle was to be seen or heard of. After 7 years more, when he was 14 years old, he again went thither, and there stood the castle. When he had opened it, there was nothing within but a horse, a white one. Then the boy was so full of joy, because he had a horse, that he mounted on it and galloped back to his father. "Now I have a white horse, and I will travel," said he. So he set out, and as he was on his way, a pen was lying on the road. At first, he thought he would pick it up, but then again, he thought to himself, "Thou shouldst leave it lying there. Thou wilt easily find a pen where thou art going, if thou hast need of one." As he was thus riding away, a voice called after him, "Ferdinand the Faithful, take it with thee." He looked around, but saw no one. Then he went back again and picked it up. When he had ridden a little way farther, he passed by a lake, and a fish was lying on the bank, gasping and panting for breath. So he said, "Wait, my dear fish, I will help thee get into the water." And he took hold of it by the tail and threw it into the lake. Then the fish put its head out of the water and said, "As thou hast helped me out of the mud, I will give thee a flute. When thou art in any need, play on it, and then I will help thee. And if ever thou lettest anything fall in the water, just play, and I will reach it out to thee." Then he rode away, and there came to him a man who asked him where he was going. "Oh, to the next place." Then what his name was, Ferdinand the Faithful. So then we have got almost the same name. I am called Ferdinand the Unfaithful. And they both set out to the inn in the nearest place. Now it was unfortunate that Ferdinand the Unfaithful knew everything that the other had ever thought, and everything he was about to do. He knew it by means of all kinds of wicked arts. There was, however, in the inn an honest girl who had a bright face and behaved very prettily. She fell in love with Ferdinand the Faithful because he was a handsome man, and she asked him whither he was going. "Oh, I am just traveling round about," said he. Then she said he ought to stay there, for the king of that country wanted an attendant or an outrider, and he ought to enter his service. He answered he could not very well go to anyone like that and offer himself. Then said the maiden, "Oh, but I will soon do that for you." And so she went straight to the king and told him that she knew of an excellent servant for him. He was well pleased with that, and had Ferdinand the Faithful brought to him, and wanted to make him his servant. He, however, liked better to be an outrider, for where his horse was, there he also wanted to be. So the king made him an outrider. When Ferdinand the Unfaithful learnt that, he said to the girl, "What dost thou help him, and not me?" "Oh," said the girl, "I will help thee too." She thought, "I must keep friends with that man, for he is not to be trusted." She went to the king and offered him as a servant, and the king was willing. Now, when the king met his lords in the morning, he always lamented and said, "Oh, if I had but my love with me." Ferdinand the Unfaithful was, however, always hostile to Ferdinand the Faithful. So once, when the king was complaining, thus he said, "You have the outrider, send him away to get her, and if he does not do it, his head must be struck off." Then the king sent for Ferdinand the Faithful, and told him that there was in this place, or in that place, a girl he loved, and that he was to bring her to him, and if he did not do it, he should die. Ferdinand the Faithful went into the stable to his white horse, and complained and lamented, "Oh, what an unhappy man I am!" Then someone behind him cried, "Ferdinand the Faithful, why weepest thou?" He looked round, but saw no one, and went on lamenting. "Oh, my dear little white horse, now must I leave thee, now must I die." Then someone cried once more, "Ferdinand the Faithful, why weepest thou?" Then for the first time he was aware that it was his little white horse who was putting that question. "Dost thou speak, my little white horse? Canst thou do that?" And again he said, "I am to go to this place and to that, and am to bring the bride. Canst thou tell me how I am to set about it?" Then answered the little white horse, "Go thou to the king, and say if he will give thou what thou must have thou wilt get her for him. If he will give thee a ship full of meat, and a ship full of bread, it will succeed. Great giants dwell on the lake, and if thou takest no meat with thee for them, they will tear thee to pieces. And there are the large birds which would pick the eyes out of thy head, if thou hadst no bread for them." Then the king made all the butchers in the land kill, and all the bakers bake, that the ships might be filled. When they were full, the little white horse said to Ferdinand the Faithful, "Now mount me, and go with me into the ship, and then, when the giants come, say, 'Peace, peace, my dear little giants. I have had thought of ye, something I have brought for ye.' And when the birds come, thou shalt again say, 'Peace, peace, my dear little birds. I have had thought of ye, something I have brought for ye.' Then they will do nothing to thee, and when thou comest to the castle, the giants will help thee. Then go up to the castle, and take a couple of giants with thee. There the princess lies sleeping. Thou must, however, not awaken her, but the giants must lift her up and carry her in her bed to the ship." And now everything took place as the little white horse had said, and Ferdinand the Faithful gave the giants and the birds what he had brought with him for them, and that made the giants willing, and they carried the princess in her bed to the king. And when she came to the king, she said she could not live. She must have her writings. They had been left in her castle. Then, by the instigation of Ferdinand the Unfaithful, Ferdinand the Faithful was called, and the king told him he must fetch the writings from the castle, or he should die. Then he went once more into the stable, and bemoaned himself, and said, "Oh, my dear little white horse, now I am to go away again. How am I to do it?" Then the little white horse said he was just to load the ships full again. So it happened again as it had happened before, and the giants and the birds were satisfied, and made gentle by the meat. When they came to the castle, the white horse told Ferdinand the Faithful that he must go in, and that on the table in the princess's bedroom lay the writings. And Ferdinand the Faithful went in and fetched them. When they were on the lake, he let his pen fall into the water. Then said the white horse, "Now I cannot help thee at all." But he remembered his flute and began to play on it, and the fish came with the pen in its mouth and gave it to him. So he took the writings to the castle where the wedding was celebrated. The queen, however, did not love the king because he had no nose. But she would have much liked to love Ferdinand the Faithful. Once, therefore, when all the lords of the court were together, the queen said she could do feats of magic, that she could cut off anyone's head and put it on again, and that one of them ought just to try it, but none of them would be the first. So Ferdinand the Faithful, again, at the instigation of Ferdinand the Unfaithful, undertook it, and she hewed off his head and put it on again for him, and it healed together directly, so that it looked as if he had a red thread round his throat. Then the king said to her, "My child, and where hast thou learnt that?" "Yes," she said, "I understand the art. Shall I just try it on thee also?" "Oh, yes," said he. But she cut off his head, and did not put it on again, but pretended that she could not get it on, and that it would not keep fixed. Then the king was buried, but she married Ferdinand the Faithful. He, however, always rode on his white horse, and once when he was seated on it, it told him that he was to go on to the heath, which he knew, and gallop 3 times round it. And when he had done that, the white horse stood up on its hind legs and was changed into a king's son. The 12 idle servants. There were once 12 servants, stout of body, but weak of spirit, who spent the whole of their days in idleness. They never lifted a hand by daylight, and when evening came, instead of mending their faults, they stretched themselves on the grass and made a sport of boasting, which among them was laziest. Each one told his tale of sloth as though it were a badge of honor, and the night grew long with their vainglorious confessions. The first raised his voice and said, "My laziness is greater than all yours, and I will tell you why. The chief business of my life is to tend my own belly. I eat 4 meals every day and drink enough to sink a ship, and after that I must lie still until hunger returns. To rise with the sun is not for me. Rather, I wait until the day is half spent, and then I look about for some soft corner to rest in. If my master calls, I pretend not to hear, If he calls again, I stir myself slowly, like a tortoise in winter, and creep to him only when it pleases me. Thus I keep my body whole, and in this fashion I endure life, the second not to be outdone. Spoke. Thus I am set to look after a horse. Yet I scarcely trouble myself with his care. I let the bit rest in his mouth, and if I dislike the task, I simply give him no food, saying he has eaten already. Meanwhile, I climb into the oat chest and sleep 4 hours at a stretch. When I awake, I stretch out my foot and brush it once or twice across the horse's back, and that is my combing. Who would make a greater labor of it? Yet even so, the service is too toilsome for me. The third laughed and shook his head. Work, why plague oneself with it? One day, I laid myself in the sun and fell asleep. A little rain began to fall, but I stirred not. Then the shower came down so hard, it washed the very hair from my head, leaving a bare hole in my skull. Still, I did not rise. At last, I set a plaster upon the wound and thought no more of it. I have suffered many such injuries, but never have they taught me diligence. The fourth folded his hands and said, "When work is given me, I first wander about an hour to save my strength. Then I begin as slowly as if time itself were endless, asking always if no one will lend me aid. If help comes, I let the other do the burden and stand looking on. Yet even standing by is too heavy for me." The fifth, yawning, added his part. "My lot is to clean the horse's stable and load the cart with dung. I take it up little by little, half raising it upon the fork, then resting for a quarter of an hour before I toss it in. If by day's end I have filled 1 cart, I count it more than enough. I was not born to kill myself with labor." Then spoke the sixth half. "Asleep, you are children compared to me. I fear no work that is true. Yet I lie down 3 weeks at a time without removing my clothes. Shoes may fall from my feet for all I care. When I climb a stair, I drag 1 foot after the other onto the first step, then stop to count the rest, so I may know where next to rest. Such is my strength," the seventh boasted in a weak voice. "My master often looks to see if I labor, though he is gone much of the day. Still, I neglect nothing, save movement itself. I run as swiftly as can be done when one only crawls. To go forward, sturdy men to push me with all their might. Once I came where 6 men lay sleeping on a bed. I lay beside them and slumbered too, and when they would wake me, they could not, and were forced to carry me home like a sack of grain. The 8th raised himself a little and said proudly, Among you, I alone am truly diligent. When a stone lies in my path, I do not trouble to lift my legs. I lay myself upon the ground, though it be wet or muddy, and wait until the sun has dried me. At most, I turn myself a little, that the warmth may strike another side. The ninth said with a feeble sigh, "That is true. Idleness indeed. Today bread lay before me, yet I had not the strength to take it, and nearly perished of hunger. A jug of drink was near, but it was large and heavy, and I preferred thirst to the trouble of lifting it. To turn myself round was more than I could endure, so I lay like a low from dawn till dusk." The 10th spoke with a groan. "My laziness has brought me misfortune, for I bear a broken leg and a swollen calf. 3 of us lay in the road, my legs stretched wide. A cart came rolling, and the wheels passed over me. I might have drawn my legs aside, but the midges buzzed about my ears and crept in at my nose and out at my mouth, and I couldn't take the trouble to drive them away. So now I suffer, yet I still lie idle." The 11th smirked. "I gave up my post but yesterday. I tired of carrying my master's books to and fro without end. He dismissed me at last, for the garments I left lying in the dust became moth-eaten, and he would keep me no longer. Yet I rejoiced at my freedom, and counted it good fortune. Finally, the 12th told his tale. This very day, I was to drive the cart into the fields. I spread straw upon it, and laid myself down to sleep. The reins slipped from my hand, and while I slumbered, the horse was nearly torn away, the harness stolen, the strap, the collar, the bridle, and bit all carried off by some passer-by. The cart sank into a quagmire and stuck fast. Still, I did not stir. Only when the master himself came and set it free was the thing made right. Had he not come, I would still be there, stretched upon the straw, sleeping in tranquility. And so the 12 servants boasted of their sloth. Each thought himself the laziest, and each was proud of what should have brought him shame. Whether they remained long in their master's service, the tale does not say, but folk whispered that such men are more burdensome than beasts. For even an ox will pull the cart, and a hound will guard the door. But these 12 thought idleness the highest art. The donkey. Once on a time, there lived a king and a queen who were rich and had everything they wanted, but no children. The queen lamented over this day and night and said, "I am like a field on which nothing grows." At last, God gave her her wish. But when the child came into the world, it did not look like a human child, but was a little donkey. When the mother saw that her lamentations and outcries began in real earnest. She said she would far rather have had no child at all than have a donkey, and that they were to throw it into the water, that the fishes might devour it. But the king said, "No, since God has sent him, he shall be my son and heir, and after my death sit on the royal throne and wear the kingly crown." The donkey therefore was brought up and grew bigger, and his ears grew up beautifully high and straight. I was, however, of a merry disposition, jumped about, played, and had a special pleasure in music, so that he went to a celebrated musician and said, "Teach me thine art, that I may play the lute as well as thou dost." "Ah, dear little master," answered the musician, "that would come very hard to you. Your fingers are certainly not suited to it, and are far too big. I am afraid the strings would not last." No excuses were of any use. The donkey was determined to play the lute. He was persevering and industrious, and at last learnt to do it as well as the master himself. The young lordling once went out walking, full of thought, and came to a well. He looked into it, and in the mirror, clear water, saw his donkey's form. He was so distressed about it that he went out into the wide world and only took with him one faithful companion. They traveled up and down, and at last they came into a kingdom where an old king reigned, who had an only but wonderfully beautiful daughter. The donkey said, "Here we will stay," knocked at the gate, and cried, "A guest is without open, that he may enter." As, however, the gate was not opened, he sat down, took his lute, and played it in the most delightful manner with his 2 forefeet. Then the doorkeeper opened his eyes, most wonderfully wide, and ran to the king and said, "Outside by the gate sits a young donkey, which plays the lute as well as an experienced master." "Then let the musician come to me," said the king. When, however, a donkey came in, everyone began to laugh at the lute player. And now the donkey was asked to sit down and eat with the servants. He, however, was unwilling, and said, "I am no common stable ass. I am a noble one." Then they said, "If that is what thou art, seat thyself with the men of war." "No," said he, "I will sit by the king." The king smiled and said good-humoredly, "Yes, it shall be as thou wilt. Little ass, come here to me." Then he asked, "Little ass, how does my daughter please thee?" The donkey turned his head towards her, looked at her, nodded, and said, "I like her above measure. I have never yet seen anyone so beautiful as she is." "Well then, thou shalt sit next her too," said the king. "That is exactly what I wish," said the donkey, and he placed himself by her side, ate and drank, and knew how to behave himself daintily and cleanly. When the noble beast had stayed a long time at the king's court, he thought, "What good does all this do me? I shall still have to go home again." Let his head hang sadly, and went to the king and asked for his dismissal. But the king had grown fond of him and said, "Little ass, what ails thee? Thou lookest as sour as a jug of vinegar. I will give thee what thou wantest. Dost thou want gold?" "No," said the donkey, and shook his head. "Dost thou want jewels and rich dress?" "No." "Dost thou wish for half my kingdom?" "Indeed, no." Then said the king, "If I did but know, what would make thee content? Wilt thou have my pretty daughter to wife?" "Ah, yes," said the ass, "I should indeed like her." And all at once he became quite merry and full of happiness, for that was exactly what he was wishing for. So a great and splendid wedding was held. In the evening, when the bride and bridegroom were led into their bedroom, the king wanted to know if the ass would behave well, and ordered a servant to hide himself there. When they were both within, the bridegroom bolted the door, looked around, and as he believed that they were quite alone, he suddenly threw off his ass's skin and stood there in the form of a handsome royal youth. "Now," said he, "thou seest who I am, and seest also that I am not unworthy of thee." Then the bride was glad, and kissed him, and loved him dearly. When morning came, he jumped up, put his animal's skin on again, and no one could have guessed what kind of a form was hidden beneath it. Soon came the old king. "Ah," cried he, "is the little ass merry? But surely thou art sad," said he to his daughter, "that thou hast not got a proper man for thy husband." "Oh no, dear father, I love him as well as if he were the handsomest in the world, and I will keep him as long as I live." The king was surprised, but the servant who had concealed himself came and revealed everything to him. The king said, "That cannot be true." "Then watch yourself the next night, and you will see it with your own eyes. And hark you, Lord King, if you were to take his skin away and throw it in the fire, he would be forced to show himself in his true shape." "Thy advice is good," said the king. And at night, when they were asleep, he stole in, and when he got to the bed, he saw by the light of the moon a noble-looking youth lying there, and the skin lay stretched on the ground. So he took it away and had a great fire lighted outside, and threw the skin into it, and remained by it himself until it was all burnt to ashes. As, however, he was anxious to know how the robbed man would behave himself, he stayed awake the whole night and watched. When the youth had slept his sleep out, he got up by the first light of morning and wanted to put on the ass's skin, but it wasn't to be found. On this he was alarmed, and full of grief and anxiety said, "Now I shall have to contrive to escape." But when he went out, there stood the king, who said, "My son, whither away in such haste? What hast thou in mind? Stay here. Thou art such a handsome man, thou shalt not go away from me. I will now give thee half my kingdom, and after my death thou shalt have the whole of it. Then I hope that what begins so well may end well, and I will stay with you," said the youth. And the old man gave him half the kingdom, and in a year's time, when he died, the youth had the whole. And after the death of his father, he had another kingdom as well, and lived in all magnificence. The lambkin and the little fish. Once in a land not far and not near, there lived a little brother and a little sister. They were bound to one another with cords stronger than iron, for they loved each other with all the warmth their hearts could carry. Their days would have been full of laughter and play had fate been kinder. For their mother, who had once held them close, had been taken by death. And in her place came another woman, a stepmother, who carried no love for them. Her face was fair to strangers, but her heart was hard as flint, and her thoughts sharp as thorns. In secret she whispered ill against the children, weaving harm where she could, and setting snares unseen. The children, innocent of all this, often joined the other boys and girls in the meadow before their house. There, where the grass was sweet and the daisies nodded, they played their games of circle and song. At the edge of the meadow lay a deep pond, its water dark and still, a mirror to the sky. Around it, the children ran their voices, ringing like bells, their feet treading patterns into the earth. And they sang together the old rhyme of counting out, Enneke, Benneke, let me live, and I to thee my bird will give. The little bird shall straw then seek the straw. I'll give the cow to eat. The pretty cow will give me milk. The milk I'll carry to the baker, skilled. The baker he shall a cake. The cake I'll give the cat to take. The cat shall catch some mice. For that, the mice I'll hang up in the smoke. And then you'll see the snow. So they sang hand in hand, standing in a ring. And whosoever the final word, snow, fell upon, had to fly from the circle, while all the others gave chase, laughing as the meadow echoed with their joy. But in the high chamber of the house, behind the window, the stepmother sat. She gazed down upon them, her eyes, narrowing, her lips pressed thin with envy. The sight of the children's merriment was like a thorn in her flesh, and her heart grew hotter with anger. She was no ordinary woman, for she had given herself to dark arts, and her knowledge of witchcraft was great. With whispered words and wicked thoughts, she stretched forth her power, and in a breath, the happy brother became a fish, silver-scaled and sorrowful, and the gentle sister was turned into a lamb white as snow, soft and trembling. The fish slipped into the shadowed pond, circling without rest, his heart heavy with grief. The lamb wandered upon the meadow, but her mouth could not touch a single blade of grass, and her eyes were clouded with sorrow. So the days turned into weeks, and the weeks into months, and the spell held fast. One day, not long after, guests came riding to the castle. They were strangers of noble bearing, and the false stepmother thought to herself, "Now fortune smiles on me. For what better time to rid myself of the lamb than when the house is in need of feasting?" She summoned the cook and said with cold command, "Go quickly into the meadow, fetch the lamb, and slaughter it. We have nothing else fit to set before our guests." The cook obeyed, though his heart was heavy. He took the little lamb from the meadow, tied its feet gently, and bore it into the kitchen. The creature bore all patiently, as if it knew its hour had come. And when the cook drew forth his knife, sharpening it upon the threshold stone, he heard a sound that froze his blood. For from the pond, beside the kitchen, a small fish swam to and fro, and it lifted its sad eyes toward him. The lamb looked down through the window and cried in a clear, sorrowful voice, "Ah, brother, in the pond, so deep, how heavy is my heart." The cook now whets his sharpened knife to steal away my tender life. And the fish answered in tones no less mournful, "Ah, sister, dear above, so high, how heavy is my heart, for here I drift in waters dark, and may not reach where thou art." When the cook heard such speech, and knew it came from the lips of lamb and fish, his soul trembled within him. "This is no common beast," he thought, "but creatures enchanted by foul sorcery." He threw down his knife and whispered, "Be at peace, little lamb, I shall not harm thee." Instead, he went to the flock and took another sheep, preparing it for the guests. Then he carried the enchanted lamb secretly away to a humble peasant woman who lived nearby. To her, he told all he had seen and heard. Now this peasant woman was none other than the foster mother who once nursed the little sister at her breast. At the first look into the lamb's eyes, she knew the truth. "This is my child," she murmured, bewitched by the wicked lady of the house. With haste, she bore the lamb to a wise woman in the woods, a woman known for blessings stronger than curses. The wise woman listened nodded, and spoke charms of undoing. She took water from the spring and sprinkled it over the lamb and the fish, speaking words older than the stones, words that carried the weight of mercy. And lo, before their eyes, the lamb's fleece melted into a gown of linen, and the fish's scales faded, leaving behind a small boy, pale but smiling. Brother and sister stood once more in their own true shapes, and tears of joy ran down their cheeks as they embraced. The wise woman led them far from the stepmother's reach into a quiet hut hidden deep within the great forest. There, beneath the shelter of tall trees and the song of birds, they dwelt together. Though they had little, they were content, for they were free from the hand of the wicked, and they had each other. And so, in the shadow of the forest, they grew up strong and happy, bound by love that no spell could ever break again. The Three Sluggards. Once upon a time, in a far-off kingdom, girdled by dark forests and silver rivers, there reigned a certain king, whose wisdom and justice were spoken of in every neighboring land. This king had 3 sons, and though each was unlike the other in temperament and look, he loved them with an equal and unwavering heart. Yet as the seasons rolled on, and the snows of many winters settled upon his brow, a great care began to trouble him. He knew that his days upon earth were numbered, and the question of who should bear his crown weighed upon him as heavily as iron. For many nights he lay awake in his high chamber, the moonlight falling pale upon the tapestries, and pondered the matter. Each son had been taught the arts of rule. Each knew the laws of the land, the tongues of foreign courts, and the customs of the people. But none shone brighter than the others, and the king's mind, like a compass without a true north, turned now to one, now to another. And so, at last, when his strength began to fail, and the hour of his departure drew near, he resolved upon a curious test, a trial not of valor or wisdom, but of something far stranger. On a day when the palace bells tolled softly, and a hush lay over the halls, he summoned his sons to his bedside. The chamber was dim and still, the curtains drawn against the sun, and only the steady ticking of a clock and the faint rustle of the fire could be heard. The 3 princes came and knelt before their father. Their heads bowed, for they saw that the end was close. "My beloved children," said the king, his voice thin but steadfast, "long have I ruled this realm, and long have I wondered which of you should succeed me. You are all dear to me, and none is more cunning or more bold than another. But last night, as the wind rattled the casements, a thought came to me, and it has taken root like a seed. Hear then my decree: whosoever among you proves himself the laziest of all shall inherit the kingdom. At this, the princes looked at one another in astonishment, for never had they heard of such a judgment. Yet the king's eyes glimmered with a kind of quiet mischief, and they knew his word was final. The eldest prince, a tall youth with hair like dark copper, was the first to speak. "Father," he said with solemn pride, "the kingdom is mine by right of your command. For of all men living, none is more idle than I. When I lie upon my bed to rest, and a drop of rain falls upon my eye from the roof above, I will not lift my eyelid to brush it away, but let it fall and fall until sleep takes me. Such is my sloth." The second prince, whose eyes were gray as a winter sea, and whose hands were soft from sitting too long indoors, laughed softly and said, "Nay, brother, the crown belongs to me. For when I sit by the fire to warm my feet, and the sparks leap out and sting my heels, I would rather let the flames burn my flesh than draw my leg an inch away. That is the depth of my idleness." Then the third prince, the youngest, who was pale and quiet, and spoke seldom, but always with weight, lifted his head and said, "Father and brothers, hear me. If I were to stand upon the gallows with the rope already tight around my neck, and someone were to place a sharp knife into my hand so that I might cut myself free, I would not trouble my arm to rise. I would sooner swing and be done than move my hand to the rope. Such is my indolence." A great silence followed his words. Even the fire seemed to shrink and whisper. The king lay still, his eyes fixed upon the youngest, and for a moment it was as though he gazed through him into some far country. Then at last he nodded slowly, like a man who has heard the end of a long story. "My sons," he said, "each of you has spoken well, but one among you has carried this matter to its furthest edge. To lie still, though rain fall upon your face, is sloth indeed. To suffer burning rather than stir is greater still. But to accept death itself rather than move a single hand, this surpasses them all. Therefore, the crown shall be thine, my youngest. Upon thy brow it shall rest, and in thine hands, though they be slow, it shall remain." And so it came to pass. The king died, and the youngest son, who was laziest of all, was crowned. And what became of that kingdom under such a ruler, no one can say for certain. For some tales end at the wedding, and some at the coronation, and the rest is left to the telling of others. The Lord's animals and the devils. In the beginning of days, when the Lord God fashioned the creatures of the earth, He gave to each its form and purpose. The birds received wings to cross the heavens. The fishes were granted fins to stir the waters, and the beasts of the field were shaped to walk the green pastures. Among them all, he chose out the wolf to be his faithful hound, to keep watch and serve as guardian over his works. Yet in the vastness of his creation, the Lord forgot one small creature, the goat. Now the devil, whoever seeks to twist what is lacking, perceived the omission, and in his envy resolved to fashion goats of his own making. With cunning hands he shaped them, slender of body, nimble of foot, and he set upon each a long and splendid tail, swaying behind like a banner. At first, he took great pride in this handiwork, and thought himself clever, for the goats skipped merrily through the meadows, and seemed pleasing to behold. But when the goats went to pasture, mischief soon followed. Their proud tails were forever caught in thorns and hedges. Each day, the devil was forced to leave his dark business and untangle them, pulling and tugging with no small effort. Many times he scratched his hands upon the briars, and many times he cursed his foolish labor. At last his anger rose so high that he seized the goats one by one, and in a fit of rage he bit off every tail with his own teeth. From that hour, the goats bore nothing but short stumps, as all may see even today. Yet when they roamed free, without their tails, a greater trouble began. For the Lord looked down from heaven and saw how the goats gnawed at young trees until the bark was ruined, and how they trampled the noble vines heavy with fruit. Wherever tender shoots or blossoms grew, the goats brought waste and destruction. This grieved the Lord, for he delights in what is fruitful and fair. In his mercy he summoned the wolves, his appointed hounds, and bade them guard the gardens and vineyards. Swiftly they descended, and they tore in pieces the troublesome goats that ventured there. When the devil beheld this fury burned in his breast, he went before the Lord and cried, "Thine own creatures have destroyed mine." But the Lord answered calmly, "Why didst thou make that which harms and despoils?" The devil replied, "I was compelled, for all my thoughts run ever toward mischief, and what I shape must needs carry that nature. Therefore, thou must pay me great damages for the loss I have suffered." Then the Lord said, "I will pay thee thy due, but not today. Return when the oak leaves fall, and then thy payment shall be ready and counted." So the seasons turned, and when autumn winds blew, and the leaves fell in showers, the devil came boldly to claim his reward. But the Lord spoke once more. "In the city of Constantinople stands a mighty oak tree, whose leaves still cling fast. Until that tree is bare, thy payment is not yet owed. The devil gnashed his teeth and cursed, but he set out to find the tree. Through forest and wilderness he wandered for 6 long months, raging as he went, until at last he found the tall oak standing green against the sky, its leaves unfallen. Yet when he returned at length to claim his right, behold, all the oaks across the wide world had already clothed themselves again in the fresh leaves of spring. Thus the devil's claim was lost, and he must forfeit his damages. His wrath knew no bounds. In his spite, he took the goats that remained, and with wicked hands he plucked out their eyes. Into the empty sockets he set his own, so that from that day forth goats bore the gaze of the devil himself, fiery, restless, and unclean. And this is why, to this very hour, goats are seen with bitten-off tails and strange, devilish eyes. And because he once shaped them in his likeness, the evil one is said to delight in taking the form of a goat whenever he walks upon the earth. The tale of Cockine in the far-off time of Cockine. I myself wandered there, and strange marvels unfolded before my eyes. Marvels so peculiar and tangled with impossibility that to speak of them is to wander in a forest of riddles. I tell you, I saw itself the great city and the Lateran church, not resting upon stone nor earth, but dangling high above, held fast by a single silken thread, finer than a maiden's hair. And there came a man with no feet, who yet outran a horse as swift as the wind, leaving dust and shadow in his wake. And in his path a sword sharpened, keener than the edge of frost, sliced through an entire bridge as though it were soft cheese upon a platter. There I beheld a young ass, gentle yet strange, whose nose gleamed of silver, bright as moonlight. This little beast gave chase to 2 hares, nimble as sparks, and together they darted through meadows where wonder bloomed. Close by a lime tree, grew so tall its crown touched the heavens, and upon its branches hung not leaves nor blossoms, but steaming hot cakes, dripping with butter, ready to be plucked by any hungry hand. Not far away shuffled an old goat, thin as famine, yet burdened beyond belief, for on his back he bore 100 cartloads of fat and 60 cartloads of salt. Besides, he staggered yet did not fall, and I marveled at how his bones did not break beneath such weight. And still, I asked myself, had I not already told enough lies? Yet the vision did not end. There I saw a plow, plowing the fields without horse or ox to guide it, the earth furrowing it as though compelled by unseen spirits. And from a village nearby, a child of but 1 year old hurled 4 heavy millstones, stones vast and round, so that they flew from Ratisbon to Treves, from Treves to Strasbourg, faster than a raven's wing. Above a hawk swam upon the broad Rhine, cutting the waves like a fish, and none dared tell him he had no right to such sport. Soon I heard the fish of the river lift their voices, quarreling so loudly that the sound echoed the way to heaven's gate. And from a valley, hidden in a mountain's crown, sweet honey streamed like a river, flowing as freely as water, gilding the rocks with amber light. Then came still stranger sights. 2 black crows bent their heads and mowed a meadow as though they were reapers of men's fields. 2 gnats, tiny as dust motes, labored to build a bridge of delicate span. 2 white doves fell upon a wolf and tore him to pieces with their gentle beaks. And I swear to you, 2 children brought forth 2 kids as goats would, while 2 frogs together threshed corn upon the ground. I saw 2 mice arrayed in holy vestments, consecrating a bishop with grave solemnity. I saw 2 cats claw a bear's tongue clean out. Then a snail crawling swift, as lightning struck down 2 lions, fierce and roaring, and left them lifeless upon the ground. By the roadside stood a barber razor in hand, who shaved a woman's beard, as if it were the most ordinary of tasks. And 2 babes at the breast scolded their mother, commanding her to hold her tongue. Beyond them 2 greyhounds strained and dragged a heavy mill out of the river, dripping with moss and water. Beside them stood a weary, ragged horse, and he declared with all his might, "So it is." 4 other horses, stout and strong, stood in the yard threshing corn as men do their hooves, striking in rhythm. And within the kitchen, 2 goats fed the stove with firewood, while a red cow flung loaves of bread into the oven, as though she had long kept a baker's trade. At last, a cock upon the fence lifted his head and crowed with all the power in his throat. Cock-a-doodle-doo. His call rang out like the closing of a book, and so the tale was ended. Yet I wonder, do you not see? These are marvels beyond measure, woven of nonsense and wonder alike, where beasts act as men and children, speak with wisdom, and all the world dances upside down. Thus, I say again, cock-a-doodle-doo. The story is all told cock-a-doodle-doo. Fair Katrinelje and Pif-Paf-Poltrie. Once upon a time, there lived a curious little fellow by the name of Pif-Paf-Poltrie. He was a wanderer by trade, quick of speech, light of foot, and bold of heart. One morning, When the sun had scarcely lifted the mists from the meadows, he set out with a single thought in his mind. He wished to marry fair Katrinelje, the daughter of Father Hollenthe. So he went straightway to the house, where the shutters were still half closed, and the cock crowed thrice upon the roof. Standing at the gate, he knocked and cried aloud, "Good day, Father Hollenthe." From within came the gruff voice of the master of the house. "Many thanks, Pif-Paf-Poltrie. What seek you so early?" And the suitor replied, "May I be allowed to have your daughter?" Father Hollenthe stroked his beard, thoughtful and slow, and said, "Oh yes, it may be so, if Mother Malcho, brother high and mighty, sister Käsetraut, and fair Katrinelje herself are willing. Then you may have her." "Where is Mother Malcho?" then asked Pif-Paf-Poltrie eagerly. "She is in the cowhouse, milking the red-spotted cow," answered Father Hollenthe. So off he went past the orchard and into the cowhouse, where Mother Malcho bent low with her milking pail. "Good day, Mother Malcho," he called. "Many thanks, Pif-Paf-Poltrie," said she, wiping the foam of milk from her hands. "May I be allowed to have your daughter?" asked the suitor. Mother Malcho laughed a little and replied, "Oh, yes, it may be so, if Father Hollenthe, high and mighty sister Käsetraut, and fair Katrinelje are willing. Then you may have her." "Where is brother high and mighty?" asked he. "High is in the chamber, chopping wood upon the block," she told him. So Pif-Paf-Poltrie went to the chamber, and there was brother high and mighty, swinging his axe mightily. "Good day, brother high and mighty." "Many thanks, Pif-Paf-Poltrie," said the brother, pausing in his work. "May I be allowed to have your sister?" "Oh yes," said brother high and mighty, if Father Hollenthe, Mother Malcho, sister Käsetraut, and fair Katrinelje are willing, you may have her." "Where is sister Käsetraut?" then asked the suitor. "She is in the garden, cutting cabbages, green and white," answered the brother. Off went Pif-Paf-Poltrie again into the garden, rose where sister Käsetraut bent with her knife among the cabbages. "Good day, sister Käsetraut," said he. "Many thanks, Pif-Paf-Poltrie," answered she, looking up. "May I be allowed to have your sister?" "Oh yes," said sister Käsetraut, if Father Hollenthe, Mother Malcho, brother high and mighty, and fair Katrinelje are willing. Then you may have her." "And where is fair Katrinelje?" asked he at once. "She is in the chamber, counting out her farthings," sister Käsetraut replied. So Pif-Paf-Poltrie hurried to the chamber, and there sat fair Katrinelje, her golden hair bound with a ribbon, her eyes bright as morning, counting her little store of coins, farthing by farthing. "Good day, fair Katrinelje," he said softly. Many thanks, Pif-Paf-Poltrie, she answered, raising her eyes. Wilt thou be my bride? Asked the suitor. Oh yes, said fair Katrinelje, if father, Hollanda, mother, Malcho, brother, high and mighty, and sister, Casetrout, are willing, I am ready. Then Pif-Paf-Poltrie asked her, and fair Katrinelje, how much dowry hast thou? She laid her coins in neat rows, and answered, 14 farthings in ready money, 3.5 groschen, owing to me, half a pound of dried apples, a handful of fried bread, and a handful of spices. Besides, and many other things are mine. Have I not a dowry? Fine. But Katrinelje was curious too. And so she asked Pif-Paf-Poltrie, what is thy trade? Art thou a tailor? Something better, said he proudly. A shoemaker? Something better. A husbandman? Plowing the field? Something better still. A joiner? Working with wood? Something better. A smith who forges iron? Something better. A miller? Grinding corn? Something better. Perhaps a broom maker, said she at last, with a sly smile. Yes, that is what I am, cried Pif-Paf-Poltrie, clapping his hands. Is it not a fine trade? And so, the tale tells us that fair Katrinelje, with her farthings, her dried apples, her handful of and spices, and her dowry of cheerful willingness, was promised to Pif-Paf-Poltrie, the broom maker, who thought himself better than tailor, shoemaker, husbandman, joiner, smith, or miller. And if the two were content, then content they remained. And whether they lived happily ever after, the story does not say, but it is certain that their names are still sung in the old rhymes of the countryside. Going a-traveling. There once lived a poor widow in a lonely cottage at the edge of a dark wood. She had but one son, Katrinelje, who was restless in spirit, and forever gazing at the road that wound away into the hills. Though the boy was poor, his heart yearned for travel, for wonders, and for the wide world beyond the village fields. Many times he begged his mother, saying, "Mother, let me go out and see what fortune lies upon the road." But the woman shook her head and answered with sorrow, "Alas, my child, how couldst thou travel? We have no money to fill thy purse, no horse to carry thee, nor friends to shelter thee. Stay at home, for the world is hard, and hunger bites more cruelly than the frost." Yet the youth was obstinate, as the young often are. "I shall manage well enough for myself," quoth he. "I need no silver, no gold, no horse. I will go as I am, and I will keep a saying upon my lips that will bring me luck. I will say always, not much, not much, not much." So against his mother's tears, the lad set forth, bare of pocket and bare of sense, but with a bold tongue, repeating, "Not much, not much, not much." I had not gone far before he came upon a band of fishermen standing on the shore and casting their net into the waters. The youth, wishing to greet them, cried out cheerfully, "God speed you." "Not much, not much, not much." The fishermen turned with black looks. "What sayest thou, thou ragged churl? Not much. Dost thou mock us?" They pulled their net ashore, and indeed, within it flopped only a few paltry fish. Then their anger burned like fire. One of them seized a stout stick and struck the boy about the shoulders until he cried for mercy. "Why beat you me so?" asked the youth, trembling. "What words should I then speak?" The fisherman snarled. "Say rather, 'Get it full, get it full, for that brings a good catch.' Now be gone, fool, before we set the dogs on thee." So the youth limped away, rubbing his back, but now he muttered over and over, "Get it full, get it full." After many weary miles, he came upon a crowd gathered round a gallows where a poor sinner was about to be hanged for his wicked deeds. The youth, seeing them busy, called out merrily, "Good morning. Get it full, get it full." The people grew wroth at such words. "What sayest thou, knave? Get it full. Wouldst thou have the gallows full, and more poor souls swinging here? Is not one sinner enough for thee?" And they fell upon him, cuffing and striking him, until his ears rang like bells. Bruised and weeping, he asked, "What must I say, then, that I may not be beaten?" One among them answered, "Say rather, 'May God have pity on the poor soul.' That is fitting for such a place." So he crept away, and now he repeated with pious voice, "May God have pity on the poor soul." He wandered on till he came to a pit where stood a knacker, cutting up the carcass of a horse that had fallen dead upon the road. The youth, thinking to greet him, kindly said, "Good morrow. May God have pity on the poor soul." But the knacker, whose trade was rough and whose mood was fouler, still roared, "What babblest thou, thou ill-favored loon? A horse hath no soul for God to pity." And with that he struck the lad such a box on the ear that his eyes swam with stars, and the world turned black. Half blind, he stammered, "What then should I say?" The knacker growled, "Say rather, 'There lies the carrion in the pit,' for that is the truth of it." So the lad stumbled onward, sore and shaken, whispering now, "There lies the carrion in the pit. There lies the carrion in the pit." At last he came to a cart, laden with folk men and women riding together upon their way. Wishing to give them greeting, he called out in his foolish manner, "Good morning. there lies the carrion in the pit. The riders shrieked with horror, thinking he spoke curses against them. The driver cracked his whip and thrust the boy into a muddy hole by the roadside. The people jeered, and the lash whistled about his back until he cried out in pain and shame. Thus, battered and broken, the foolish youth dragged himself homeward at last. His mother wept to see so sorely handled, and never again did he speak of traveling. For as long as he lived, he kept within his mother's cottage, and his lips never again uttered any charm or saying, whether wise or foolish. And so ends the tale of the lad, who would wander with nothing but a phrase upon his tongue.